Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call this February 28th, 2018 meeting of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority to order. Commissioner Quesada and Talbert, Commissioners Quesada and Talbert are excused, and Commissioner Hart Stebbins will be an alternate. I'd like to welcome Sarita Nair, the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Albuquerque, who will be representing Mayor Keller. All other members are present. Notice is hereby given that the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority met at 4 p.m. this afternoon for a closed meeting to discuss pending litigation proceedings. The meeting was in the County Manager's Conference Room B on the 10th floor of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Government Center, 1 Civic Plaza Northwest. The matters discussed in the closed meeting were limited only to those specified in the notice. I need a motion and a second to approve the statement to be included as part of the minutes. There's a motion and a second for the minutes to approve the statement to be included as a part of the minutes. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed, motion carries. Now, please, we'll have a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner O'Malley. Thank you all. I think we're going to have a reasonably short meeting tonight, so welcome aboard and let's see what's going on. First is item 10, which is OB 18-3, a water report. Ms. Catherine Uhas, Water Resources Division Manager, and Carlos Bustos, Water Conservation Program Manager, will be presenting this to us. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. There you go. Start. No. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Carlos Bustos. That's it. Oh, more me. Okay. I'm Carlos Bustos. I'm the Water Conservation Program Manager.
And I'm Catherine Uhas, the Water Resources Division Manager.
Tonight we'll be presenting the Water Conservation Plan update. We've been working on it the last 8 months, and finally we're really happy to be sharing it with the board. The Water 2120, as you know, is the water resource management strategy that the Water Authority worked on for several years, and it's the outlook for the next 100 years and how we're going to be managing our water supplies. So as part of that Water 2120, we needed to update our water conservation plan, install as a policy D, to continue our progress in managing our water resources by implementing water conservation to extend our supply. So our presentation will cover 2017 water usage, the New Mexico drought response, the water conservation plan update, and those changes that we're making, and also the waterways ordinance changes. So we want to invite the board members that if you have questions, if you have an interest in some of the topics, please feel free to ask us as we're talking so we can have more of a conversation. So as you can see in this slide, this is our success story. The water conservation plans is the initial stages when it was part of the city 20 years ago. It's been really successful. This is the last 20 years. We've reduced the water demand in our service area by almost 50% or 100%, and while establishing our goals, we looked at how much is that gallons per capita per day, which is currently at 128. So when we started the program, it was at 252, and we feel like looking at this trend and looking at our increase in population and also the climate variability that we expect in this area, we can successfully reach our goal of 110 GPCD by 2037. So that water usage has considerably dropped while population has increased by 53%. As you can see in the purple line, accounts have increased while water usage in the green line has decreased. You can also see that the average rainfall for Albuquerque it really fluctuates, but it's about 8 inches. Sometimes, some years, like in 2015, which was a really good year for rainfall, we had almost 12 inches.
Now we switch. As you all have probably noticed, most of New Mexico is in severe drought, and these conditions are expected to persist until summer. Whenever the service area is in severe drought or worse, we include drought messaging in all of our advertising, and we report to the board each month on our water use. On January 29th and February 16th, we put out press releases on the drought, and starting tomorrow, March 1st, we will have TV, radio, billboards, and bill inserts with drought messaging. You each have a copy of the bill insert and the billboard, what that's going to be looking like, and the TV and radio tie in with this same idea. This next chart is what we use to determine the drought response needed in the service area. Across the top is groundwater pumping, and we establish that goal every April when we get the snow melt forecast. And down the left side is gallons per capita per day. And you saw what that goal is on the slide that Carlos showed earlier. So whenever we're in the green area, which is where we are now, and that's where we expect to remain, we advertise about drought awareness and tips on weathering the drought. If that's not enough when we're in drought to keep us on track with our water conservation goal, then we come and ask you, the board, to enact further measures. For example, in stage 1, the yellow area, water waste fines would double, but we would also offer a $20 rebate for customers to attend a class on drought and how to get through the drought and how to be efficient with their watering. And then we have never needed to go beyond stage 1, but at stage 2, water surcharges actually increase. So the amount of money you're paying on your water bill would increase. And then again, it would increase in stage 3. But as I said, we've never needed to go beyond stage 1, and in most droughts, all it takes for our customers to do a great job is just that information that we're in drought, a little increase in advertising.
So how do we establish the 110 GPCD goal? And during the Water 2120, that was established, as it was actually the choice provided by our customer. And we looked at, when we were doing the Water 2120, we looked at population growth, we looked at climate change, and we looked at those variables, and then we looked at our current GPCD, which is around 128, but our goal at that point was 135. So we've achieved that goal. And then we looked at, that's the yellow line. Then we looked at alternative 1, which is further reductions of like 10 GPCD in 10 years. And then we looked at, that's the green line. And then we looked at the purple line, which is focusing only on outdoor usage. And after the conversation with our customers, the customers decided that it was best to put our efforts not only in focusing on outdoor reductions, but also maintaining the substantial building codes and the new development goals as to like being more efficient with new plumbing codes and so on. So the chosen goal is 110 GPCD, and that will further increase our supply, and the reduction after the 100-year plan will be 50,000 acre-feet of water. So as part of this update, we looked at our water conservation program. We looked at all the incentives we have. We looked at the education program. And we identify what were the effective strategies and incentives that customers were responding to. And one of the main things that we identified is that our customers respond to public education efforts. So the bill insert that Catherine just showed, billboards, social media. The other program that's really key is creating the future generation. So we got the 4th grade program where all our school children in 4th grade from APS get to go to the Rio Grande and learn about the water resources. So that's key to building the future of water conservationists in the service area. We also looked at our indoor and outdoor rebates. And we looked at our waterways enforcement activities and also our water smart workshops. So in looking at our rebate expenditures, we identified a few things. One is that we put back almost $21 million back to our customers' pockets via credits in their bills. So that's really impressive. It's almost like $1 million every year for the last 20 years. So our customers have we've given almost 190,000 rebates. And out of all those rebates, 70% of them have been for indoor rebates. And $14 million in indoor rebates, $10 million have gone in for toilet rebates. So the first phase out that we're gonna do and big change that we're gonna do is we're gonna phase out of the toilet rebate because we feel that not only our customers have responded, which has been key for water savings, but also along the way, our retail stores in the Albuquerque area are also providing high efficiency toilets. So there's really no need to keep incentivizing that program. In order to transfer our efforts into outdoor, we needed to also transfer some of our funding. So we can emphasize more xeriscate rebate participation, more efficient irrigation practices, and technology. So to achieve this new conservation goal, we also looked at what's our current water usage. So a typical residential customer is gonna use 62% of that water indoor. There's always gonna be some leaks, most of the time not, but there is that possibility. And 38% of that water use is used outdoor. So we wanna emphasize outdoor savings over indoors because as the climate changes, the demand for outdoor water use will likely increase. We saw it in this past year where production was higher than 2015, and that was a direct response to weather patterns. There was more precipitation in 2015 versus 2017. So that's a perfect example. We want to be able to provide the tools via incentives and education to our customers to respond to this climate variables. And also, because indoor, there's an opportunity to capture that water through our collection system and put it back into reuse or get credits once we, as flow credits, return flow credits.
Let me take just a second there. We have a
Yes.
question?
Here you show an 8%, I believe it looks like 8% for leaks. At what point do you send a letter out to the customer saying where there's an unusual, I guess, run of water? What point do you send it out?
Thank you, Pablo, for the question. Yes, we send high consumption letters on a monthly basis, and the way those are identified is that we look at previous year water usage, and there's an algorithm already installed into the water billing code, where if we identify that that water is higher than the average use for that specific customer, that customer is going to get a high water use consumption letter. And that letter, what it says is that you might have a potential leak. You may want to check your toilet, you may want to check your irrigation system. You can call us and we can help you on the phone to do a self-leak detection. We're also going to we're updating our website so customers can refer to that website and follow a process for identifying that leak. So we do that on a monthly basis. The goal is that once we get into and having all our AMI installed is that customers will sign up and get those alerts more immediately.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So in looking at what we've done, how successful the conservation program, we want to focus on efficiency. And efficiency for us, the way it looks is, if you look at this picture, there's something wrong with it. We're not saying that turf is wrong. We're not saying that trees. We definitely want to encourage healthy trees, healthy landscapes. But if you look at this picture, it's problematic. You're watering the streets. So that damages infrastructure, and along the way, so it's considered waterways. So we want to focus on providing the tools where customers can, if we see this, or customers identify or complaints about this, we amended the waterways ordinance so we can effectively respond by sending a warning notice to this customer and letting them know, hey, you may have an issue with your irrigation system. Give us a call, and we'll send somebody out there and help you identify what is that issue, how to fix it, and how, and then set up some rebates, which you will see in your handout, to help you effectively avoid this type of waterways. So this is our main focus, outdoor irrigation efficiency and building the culture. We feel like already our customer base, Albuquerque and the greater region, is really aware and has responded to water conservation, as you saw in that second graph we showed. Now we feel like we need to build the expertise of this customer. So now folks are asking us, hey, I'm conserving, but what else can I do? So we want to provide those tools.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
We'll give Carlos a little break. So the public outreach process around the update to the water conservation plan really started with Water 2120. And we had customer conversations where our customers were actually doing water resources management right along with us. And as Carlos said, they selected that new conservation goal. We met with neighborhood coalitions, and we had a town meeting. And then when we hired Carlos, he was tasked with updating the water conservation plan, and he started working with the TCAC. So he met with them on June 1st of 2017, and then he met with them again just in January to go over all of the changes that he had made from their recommendations in June. And then that wasn't enough. We thought we should have some neighborhood coalition meetings. And so we did customer outreach meetings in all 4 quadrants of our service area at the beginning of February. And all of that was to inform our customers about what's happening around the changes with the conservation plan, because this has been a really important part of our community, and we've had so much participation. So, of course, now we're presenting the updates to you in February and March, and once we have your approval, we will be reaching out to our customers again. There'll be a 6-month campaign to make sure that our customers know about all the changes to the water conservation program, so that they know when programs are being phased out, they know what's being added. We'll have point of service stuff, we'll have bill inserts, we'll have public meetings, and also with that, we will be having an open house. And that's an outreach opportunity for all of the property managers and our landscape managers to come and have direct contact with us to ask questions. And I think that that's everything. Oh, and we'll also have point of service. So actually where you go to purchase a toilet, there'll be a sign that says, this rebate program is ending, get your toilet now. It'll be more clever than that, but that's the idea. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any,
There's just a tiny bit more.
Okay, all right.
But we're going to...
no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure people had, if we have questions before you, don't sit down until we ask questions.
2 more slides. So one of the things in our outreach process is that we had a lot of conversations in the last 8 months with city parks and recs, county recreational and department, and also with the Clean City folks, and also with Albuquerque Public School. We feel like that's the direction that we want to take in this next 5 years, is in continuing building those relationships with those partners. And by doing that, we feel like not only are we going to have healthy landscapes for our community, which I love using, our parks and our common areas, but also we're going to have landscapes that are efficient in their water usage. At the end of the 5 years, this is how the rebates are going to look. As you can see, even though we're phasing out from a lot of indoor rebates, we're going to have a whole gamma of irrigation efficiency rebates and education opportunities, not only for our residential customers, but also for our commercial, institutional, industrial customers. So the last change that we needed to do, which was for me is key, is the waterways ordinance. So the waterways ordinance has been in place since 1995, since the previously in the city when the water conservation program was part of that, developed the water conservation strategies for the city. The waterways ordinance was one of the first things that was enacted. So it's served not only as a regulatory tool to establish the importance of conserving water, but also to create that stewardship of water rights in our community. So we feel that it's key that we continue having this ordinance in place, but we felt like we needed to modify because our customers have contributed so much and have participated so much and have bought into and to the idea of conserving water and extending our supply. So in order to do that, we looked at the waterways ordinance and we looked at a couple things that we have tested out. In 2015 was the last resolution or pilot project that we passed, and it was a warning system for our customers, residential customers. And in lieu of receiving a fine after the first complaint, we send them out a warning. And we saw that almost 70% of our customers responded to that warning notice by fixing their irrigation waterways. So we felt like the first change is to extend that warning system to all our customers. So now it's going to be across the board. The most important thing with this change is that this ordinance, we're presenting it today for in March for approval, but it's not going to be effective until 2019. That's going to give us a whole year to make sure that not only our residential customers, but our biggest high water users, parks and city and APS and Clean Cities, are aware of this new ordinance and how it's going to affect them, which in our eyes, it's going to be a positive effect. The fines are being decreased. Right now we got a structure that is $20 all the way into $2,000. That fee structure is going to change. It's going to be between $20 and $1,000. And every year they're going to have a new year to start out. A big effort with the water use compliance team is that they've established a really good relationship with Parks and Recs, and of course I keep referring Parks and Recs because that's usually most of the complaints that we get, not because they are doing things wrong, but because folks like to complain about city parks and waterways. So with that, we've responded not by issuing fines to them, but by building a good relationship with the superintendent, with the director, with the folks who are managing this irrigation system, because we know it's hard. So instead of issuing a fine or a violation, we give them a call. And it turns out that by the end of the day, usually they fix the situation. So that's part of the approach that we want to work. We feel like with this, there's going to be a decrease in enforcement and an increase in education. So this is our last slide. The benefits that we see with the waterways is that it's going to be, we're going to be emphasizing less enforcement and emphasizing more education. We're going to create the opportunities for a more positive interaction with the public. So rather than, hey, you got a $20 fine, you're going to get, hey, give us a call. We'll visit you and we'll teach you how to manage and avoid waterways in your irrigation. We'll increase participation in efficient irrigation visits, which is key because that's a culture we want to build. We hopefully in the next 10 years or at the end of the planning phase, we'll have a community that's experts in irrigation. We'll lessen staff tracking efforts, so that's a savings in water authorities staff driving around and resources. And we're also going to increase staff response by developing those relationships with our customers. And we stand for questions.
Thank you. And may I assume that we skipped around a little bit and we moved right up to the introduction of the legislation amending the water waste ordinance? Are we going to do that again? Did that take care of that?
It does, yes.
Yes,
Super.
it does.
Thank you.
Yes.
So for those of
Yes.
you who are trying to follow the agenda, we kind of moved a little bit, but it's on the agenda. So do we have any questions? Commissioner Hurst-Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of your early slides mentioned the groundwater pumping goal. Can you talk a little bit about how that was established and whether that gets updated on a regular basis?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Stebbins, the groundwater pumping goal is established each year as part of the annual operating plan. And we establish that annually, we create the annual operating plan, usually late March of each year when we know what the snowmelt runoff is going to be looking like. And we do that in consultation with all the other water users on the river, and we know what everybody's planning for the year. And so we will be presenting to you in April what the annual operating plan is for the coming year.
So it's tied, so in a drought year, the groundwater pumping goal would go up?
It may. That's a possibility, absolutely. But we have planned for that. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk about is we're ready for this drought. Water 2120 is all about being ready for these drought cycles. We've been conserving for 20 years. We've been using surface water. Water levels have risen in the aquifer as much as 40 feet in some areas. And so this is what conjunctive management is for, is to be ready for a drought year like this.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Great presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Thank you. I think we're going to try to get back on script now and go for approval of the minutes and make a motion to approve the January 24th, 2018 minutes. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes? Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is proclamations and awards. And Mr. Sanchez, who will be handling that?
I believe it's Murad Zarelli.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Water Authority's pretreatment program issues discharge permits to 59 industries throughout the service area. This year's recipient of the Award of Excellence is El Encanto, Inc., doing business as Bueno Foods. During the 2016-2017 pretreatment year, Bueno Foods was in full compliance with their wastewater discharge permit and worked to improve their pretreatment system. Through the installation of a fine screen, in the past year, Bueno Foods was able to remove 1,173 tons of organic material. And they were able to take that organic material and convert it into commercial compost. I would like to present this award of excellence to Mr. Ray Aldereth, the plant engineer for Bueno Foods, and congratulate them on commitment to beneficial environmental stewardship.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir, and thank you. Would you like to say a few words? You are on television.
No, I just want to say thank you for the award. We're always trying to become better stewards. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping your company in Albuquerque. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
members.
I believe that puts us on public comment. How many speakers do we have, please?
We have 3.
All right. Each speaker then will be given 3 minutes to speak with a warning at 2.5 minutes. Would you call the first speaker, please?
The first speaker is Michael Neese, followed by Santiago Maestas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Mike Neese. I'm here to talk about water. 3 years ago, New Mexico was 5th in the United States with regard to oil and gas development and production. Today, we are number 3. And the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association says that within the next few years, we can expect to be number 1. Tonight, you're discussing water savings from low-flow toilets and efficient washing machines. I hope that soon you will begin the discussion of the fact that the average horizontal fracking well uses 4.6 million gallons of water. There's never only one well, and these wells turn that clean water into a toxic waste, dump it 2 miles deep beneath the surface, never to be rejoined to the natural water cycle. Last month, Councilor Davis brought up the subject of the source water assessment, and I was lucky enough to be at the Water Protection Advisory Board meeting when that was discussed by Daniel B. Stevens and Associates. They are doing this source water assessment. On this source water assessment, they talk about only discussing a 1/2 mile radius around the 80-some wells that the Water Utility Authority has, and only going 15 miles upstream. That's not anywhere near good enough. The city of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County do not own the mineral rights within 1/2 mile radius of all their wells. They don't own the mineral rights under most of their schools and their open spaces. They don't even know what mineral rights they own. And so when oil and gas comes to town, and it's coming to town, then we need to be ready. And every policy and every plan needs to discuss the possibility of oil and gas coming our way. And I don't hear any discussion about oil and gas in conservation plans and policies. So another thing that I'd like to tell you is that upstream right now, there is, you may have heard about the BLM Chaco oil and gas lease. Well, that is, that lease happens on May 8th, and there are 7 large parcels just 3 miles up from the Chalma River. I know this because I own a large portion of land on the Chalma River. These pieces, if there's a spill on the Rio Gallina, just 3 miles up from the monastery, you may know where the monastery is, that will affect the water that we drink here. And 66% of the water that we drink
Thank you,
here,
sir. Thank you.
it
I do
comes
have a
down the
question.
Chalma
I
River.
do have a question.
Oh, thank you.
You said that each oil well uses, the fracking uses 4.6 million gallons. And what length of time? The life of the well?
The life of the well.
Thank you.
And that's
Thank you.
oil and gas
Thank you.
Industry.
Thank you.
Santiago Maestas, followed by Elaine Hubbard.
Santiago Maestas, 5734 Evans Road, Southwest. I provided a copy of my analysis of the water supply charge. I believe, did you all receive a copy, Madam Chair? Yes, the water supply charge is the fixed monthly fee for the water supply that shall run against the property and be the responsibility of any subsequent owner until paid in full. All monies collected through the imposition of the water service supply charge shall be placed in a separate account to be used for financing the development of additional long-term water supplies to serve expansions of the Water Authority's service area subsequent to June 15th, 2007. My understanding is that the auditor for the Water Authority has looked at the water supply charge and has found that is insufficient to cover future purchases. I ran some numbers regarding what's of interest to us in the South Valley, the Santolina Level B1 plan, which will have some 9,444 residential units as well as mixed units. The minimum water supply charge, I guess, for the smallest water meter is $1,627. And so our calculation is that the total water supply charge then would be like $17,423,000. The level B population will be some 23,000 residents. And at the current use of 127 gallons per day, that's some 3,358 acre feet per year. Water rights on the current market, and this is a low estimate, are approximately $10,000 an acre foot. So the value of the water rights necessary for the population of the Santolina level plan, we estimate at $33,500,000, leaving a net expense deficit of some $16 million. And we believe this is a violation of the known net expense provisions and policy of the Albuquerque Water Authority. And I would like to ask what the Water Authority is doing to increase the water supply charges in order to cover what your auditor believes would be the appropriate amount.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your coming here tonight. Thank you.
Elaine Hubbard is our last speaker.
I left with a question.
I'm sorry, sir. This, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you. I think that our manager would be happy to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, first of all, Water 2120, if you recall, approved a policy which said we will no longer acquire water rights. So the water supply charge basis in the future will be based on bringing online reuse water for future development. So we're in the process currently working with our rate consultant to develop a cost basis for converting from water rights acquisition to reuse production. That will be coming to you in the next year. I can't respond to Santolina because there's nothing before us about Santolina. And there was no audit or auditor finding that we're in violation of no net expense or anti-donation clause that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Elaine Hibbard, and as usual, there's not enough time for me to cover all the things that I would like to. However, for years I have been attending these meetings. I've also attended the customer conversation meetings, read many reports, and tried to keep up to date in what's the current state of the art. Naturally, I've observed several changes, and some of them have been quite good. However, the ABCWA faces several challenges in the near future, which require careful attention, time, and oversight by this board. Consider that the customer base is larger than the city of Albuquerque. According to the utility, only 6,000 people in the county are not even served by the utility. Its budget is more than $200 million. Its debt is more than $800 million. It has $450 million in critical infrastructure backlogs, which are growing and are planned to grow until 2026. There are checks and balances in the system, but they're not necessarily being followed. Consider that the goals and objectives are to be adopted prior to a budget being prepared, and those goals and objectives then sort of govern those budgets. However, there's nothing on today's agenda, so goals and objectives might be in March. The budget has to come before you in April. So how will the goals and objectives guide the process? Also, they're supposed to be coordinated with the city and the county and the public, and that again isn't probably going to happen. Furthermore, we've heard about the 2120 drought strategy criteria. Well, it's based on a groundwater pumping goal, which isn't actually known until early May when the AOP is issued. But those are so late in the game that they may not make all that much difference by the time you get the word out to everybody. There should be other triggers as well. What's the source of the water? Is it groundwater, surface water, reused water? Does it violate the compact? Those kinds of things. The latter, the Texas versus New Mexico litigation, is going to impact all of us. For that reason and many others, I think the city, the county, and the Water Utility Authority must up their game and be more proactive. Let me give you an example. MRGCD, which has a $22 million budget, 200 people working for it. Has met since November about 14 hours versus the 2+ hours that this board has met. And they have 9 committees in addition to that. Suffice it to say, I think our water use needs to be better. It's why I stood in support of the Memorial 102, which passed the House unanimously. All it asks is that the interim committee take and receive information on governance and helping it to improve. And in that spirit, I hope you will join me. Just to make sure that we have the checks and balances needed with the water utility.
Thank you, Ms. Hibbert. Is that the last speaker? Is she the last speaker? Thank you. All right, let's try to get back on the agenda then. And the announcements and communications, the next scheduled meeting is March 21st, 2018 at 5 p.m. And then we'll move on to introductions of legislation. The first is 018-2. Mr. Sanchez?
Madam Chair, this is an ordinance which would authorize the execution and delivery of a loan and subsidy agreement with the New Mexico Finance Authority. Some time ago, the board authorized us to submit an application. We were awarded this $1,010,000 to add an additional 20,000 automated meters in our system, which we had planned for in our capital program. However, this will allow us to receive a $500,000 grant if we accept a $500,000 loan at 25 cents, if you will, or 25 basis points over 20 years. So this ordinance simply authorizes this. It's first reading only. In addition to this, the next item is a confirming resolution, which is required by the New Mexico Finance Authority, and they're both companion documents. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Madam Chair, it's introduction only.
Oh, so we don't even have to vote on it?
Correct.
Thank you. So that took care of B and C.
Correct.
The next is D, R18-8, and Mr. Bustos, I believe, will, or was that a part of the other presentation also? Approving the update to the water conservation plan? Was that covered in that also? Okay, all right, thank you. I thought that was A and D combined, so we got all of that. The next would be E, which is the authorizing amendment to 2007 agreement with Western Albuquerque Land Holdings for the Antelope site. Mr. Cardena.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. I present to you a proposed amendment to a development agreement that was previously approved by the Water Authority back in 2007 with Western Albuquerque Land Holdings. The proposed development is for a property that's 464 acres located west of Atrisco Vista, just north of I-40. The property is zoned for industrial uses, and the developer's intent is to have the development or the property development ready for future use. In September 2016, the Bernalillo County Commission approved the amendment or approved this property to be amended in the Westland Master Plan, so that is included in that overall master plan with the county. The property lies within Pressure Zone 7W in the College Trunk, in which there is existing water and sanitary sewer master plan infrastructure ready to serve the site. So the site really just needs extensions of public water line and sanitary sewer needed to serve the site itself. All services within the development will be obviously required to provide the utility expansion charges as well as water supply charges.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. That is the end of our introductions of the first readings of legislation. We'll be moving to the consent agenda. I would like to have a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Are there any questions? Anyone would like to pull anyone off? All right, there's a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. And next are the approvals. First is R18-6. Mr. Sanchez?
Madam Chair, members of the authority, at the February meeting, this item was introduced. It would decrease $8.6 million in franchise fees. Our auditors have indicated it's not a revenue source, it's a pass-through, so we'd begin to recognize that as a pass-through. It would increase by $3 million a transfer to begin covering the clarifiers at the reclamation facility in our attempt and commitment to further reduce odors. It would increase the Los Padillas Water Project by $1.45 million to recognize the county's contribution for that project. So we're receiving those funds. And it would increase by $500,000 the repayment from Kirtland Air Force Base for the expenditures we made for a monitoring well, and that would be dedicated to our ASR project, our Aquifer Storage and Recovery.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Are there any questions? I'll make a motion to approve R18-6. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Motion carries. Next is C18-9, approving the service connection agreement for water and sewer service with JBC2 LLC at 4590 Paradise Boulevard Northwest.
Hello. Madam Chair, members of the board, I present to you a service connection agreement for a proposed project that consists of a assisted living facility to be located on the corner of Eagle Ranch and Paseo del Norte. There's really no need for infrastructure for this project other than connecting to already existing infrastructure. So the service connection agreement is needed because it's outside the adopted service area, but still within the city of Albuquerque. So the development will be required to pay utility expansion charges as well as water supply charges.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed. Motion carries. And our last approval for the evening is C1810, which is FY 2018 second quarter operating financial reports. Mr. Sanchez?
Madam Chair, members of the authority, this report has been reviewed by the Water Authority's internal auditor, Mr. Porch. It's been reviewed and approved by the State Department of Finance and Administration. It basically indicates that all revenue and expenditures through mid-year are in line with the original projections. It meets our debt service coverage requirements by policy, and it meets our fund balance target of 1/12 of operating funds. And it also continues our, what we call our rate stabilization fund. It's currently at $7 million. And the idea is that if we have any rate fluctuations or revenue fluctuations, there's a fund we can go to before we go to our ratepayers for a rate adjustment to offset revenue. Stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Are there any questions? There's a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.